Robert Redford wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol of Hollywood's golden age. From Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to The Sting and Out of Africa, he became one of the most admired actors and directors of his generation. With his golden hair, piercing blue eyes, and quiet confidence, Redford embodied the image of the all-American leading man. But behind the camera-ready smile was a man who valued his privacy and kept his deepest emotions locked away from the public eye. Yet, in his final years, as he approached 89, Robert Redford made an emotional confession that stunned those who knew him. It wasn't about fame, wealth, or his decades in Hollywood, it was about the one person who had truly captured his heart. Through moments of joy, tragedy, and regret, Redford revealed the truth about the love of his life, and why he had carried that bond with him until the very end. This story isn't about celebrity gossip or fleeting romance. It's about the real Robert Redford. The man who, despite his incredible success, faced heartbreak like anyone else. In this documentary, we'll uncover the Golden Boy's rise to fame, the great loves and devastating losses that shaped him, the confession that revealed his most human side, and the legacy of a man defined not only by art but by love. Robert Redford's story began far from the blinding lights of Hollywood. Born in 1936 in Santa Monica, California, but raised with strong ties to Salt Lake City, Utah, Redford grew up in modest circumstances. His early years were marked by curiosity, creativity, and at times, rebellion. Unlike the polished Hollywood image he later became known for, young Redford struggled to find his place. He admitted that he wasn't a straight-A student, nor was he interested in following a conventional path. Baseball was his first love. In high school, he was a promising athlete, and for a time, it seemed sports might define his future. But as life often does, it took him in another direction. A scholarship allowed him to attend the University of Colorado, yet his time there was brief. By his own admission, he was restless, prone to partying more than studying, and eventually lost his scholarship. It was a low point, but it would ultimately push him towards something greater. Seeking meaning, Redford traveled through Europe in his youth, immersing himself in art and culture. He studied painting in Paris and Florence, honing not only his craft but also his worldview. These travels opened his eyes to the power of storytelling, not just through brushes and canvas, but through human connection. This was the seed that later grew into his passion for acting and filmmaking. Returning to the U.S., he pursued theater training in New York City, studying at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. There, his striking looks and natural charisma quickly caught attention. Soon, he was appearing on stage and television, gradually making his way toward the big screen. By the 1960s, Redford's career began. Redford's first great love came early. In 1958, long before he was a household name, he married Lola Van Wagenen, a historian and activist. They were young and idealistic, building a life together as he pursued acting and she developed her academic and advocacy work. Their marriage lasted nearly 3 decades and produced 4 children, Scott, Shauna, David James, and Amy. But tragedy struck quickly. Their first child, Scott, died from sudden infant death syndrome at just 2 months old. It was a devastating loss that Redford admitted scarred him deeply, leaving him with a profound sense of fragility about life. Despite grief, Redford and Lola pressed on, and for years, they were partners navigating both family life and the pressures of Hollywood. But as his fame grew, so did the strains on their marriage. Redford's career demanded constant travel and attention, while Lola preferred a quieter, more academic life. By the mid-1980s, they divorced, a decision that saddened both but reflected the distance that had grown between them. Still, Redford always spoke respectfully of Lola, crediting her with providing stability during his formative years as an actor. After the divorce, Redford kept his romantic life far from the public eye, rarely giving interviews about his relationships. This discretion fueled endless speculation in the press. Over the years, he was linked to several high-profile women, including actress Sonia Braga, with whom he shared a long-term relationship. Though they never married, Redford described the companionship as meaningful and supportive, especially during a time when he was evolving more into filmmaking and activism. Yet, Redford's greatest heartbreak may not have been tied to romance but rather to the constant specter of loss within his family. His son, James Redford, a filmmaker and activist in his own right, battled liver disease for much of his life and tragically passed away in 2020 at just 58 years old. Redford's statement following James's death revealed a side of him rarely shown to the public: vulnerable, devastated, yet proud of the legacy his son left behind. Losing 2 children in one lifetime was a wound he carried silently, even as he continued working and advocating for causes he believed in. It wasn't until later in life that Redford found lasting companionship again. In 2009, he married Sibylle Sagers, a German painter. By then, Redford was in his 70s, and their union reflected a more peaceful, spiritual stage of life. The two shared a passion for art, the environment, and philanthropy. Unlike his early marriage, this relationship allowed him to slow down and enjoy the later chapters of his life away from the spotlight. But even as he embraced this calmer stage, Redford often hinted in interviews at a single, enduring love, the one that got away, the one he never stopped thinking about. Though he never revealed her name publicly, those close to him suggested that Redford carried with him the memory of. In the end, Redford's love life mirrored his films, filled with passion, heartbreak, resilience, and unforgettable characters. As he aged, he became more reflective, acknowledging the mistakes he made, the regrets he carried, and the profound gratitude he felt for those who had walked beside him. By the time Robert Redford became a household name in the 1970s, he had already transformed from a struggling New York stage actor into one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. His striking looks and charismatic presence made him an icon of the silver screen, but behind the glamour of fame was a man carrying private struggles, doubts, and emotional wounds that never fully healed. Redford's fame exploded with classics like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, where his chemistry with Paul Newman captivated audiences, and The Sting, 1973, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Soon, he was among the most sought-after actors in the world, starring in films like All the President's Men, The Way We Were, and Out of Africa. His career seemed like a dream come true, but the reality was far more complicated. Redford admitted that he never felt entirely comfortable in the Hollywood system. Fame, with all its privileges, also brought intense scrutiny and loss of privacy. While the public adored his on-screen charm, Redford was deeply introverted. He preferred the outdoors, painting, and time with his family over red carpet events. This disconnect between his public image and private self left him constantly struggling with how the world perceived him. At the same time, the personal tragedies he endured, losing his infant son Scott and, decades later, his adult son James, left emotional scars that even fame and fortune couldn't heal. These losses shaped his worldview, making him more cautious with his emotions and more reluctant to fully open up about his private life. The pain of grief often pushed him deeper into work, where he could channel his emotions into storytelling. Hollywood also presented its own set of struggles. Redford clashed with studios over creative control, often resisting the commercialism that dominated the industry. His solution was to carve out his own path. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute, which later gave rise to the Sundance Film Festival. His goal was to provide a platform for independent filmmakers whose voices might otherwise be drowned out by the Hollywood machine. This endeavor became one of his proudest achievements, showing that Redford wasn't just a star, he was a visionary determined to reshape the film industry. But behind the success of Sundance and his legacy as a filmmaker, Redford wrestled with loneliness. After his divorce from Lola Van Wagenen and the end of his high-profile relationship with Sonia Braga, he kept his heart guarded. Friends and colleagues often described him as warm but distant, a man who valued connection but feared vulnerability. It was only later, with Sibylle Sagers, that he all